Welcome to the Story Copywriter Podcast, the show that teaches you everything you need to know to write stories that sell and become the written voice of a business you love. With me, your host and founder of Story Copywriters, Rob Drummond. So marketing, as I see it, is a solution to the problem of distance. You can't speak face to face with every potential customer who might be interested in your products and services. So this is why we have marketing. And because marketing is a communications problem, it's not tangible. It's not something like my pen that I'm holding that you can hold in your hand. So we have to create metaphors for the way that we're thinking about it, the way that we're planning things. So some of these metaphors are the language of war. So historically, we've had campaigns, we've had mail shots, we've had e-shots. I'm not, so convinced that all of this language necessarily, helps us that much anymore. Another metaphor is the funnel. That seems fairly pervasive, and there's obviously a truth at the heart of that as you go through the stages, there are fewer and fewer people. A metaphor that I actually like a lot more is the customer journey. And the idea that for a customer who, if you're selling high value services or high value products, there's probably going to be, a waiting market. So we sometimes distinguish between the buying market for people who are ready to buy right now and the waiting market for people who might be ready to buy one day. And often you'll have to take them on a bit of a journey between the point at which they first encounter you, the point at which they first scroll across you on social media, the point at which they're first referred to you or introduced. There's a clear journey between that point and the point at which they're ready to kind of raise their hand and say, yes, I know, like, and trust you. I'm ready to kind of proceed with the next step. So, to me, there's a clear and obvious truth in the metaphor. I also like certain things about it. I like the fact that a journey has a defined start point, it has a defined end point, it has a clear point that we're trying to kind of work people to, if it's a long journey, it might have stopover points on the way, which are also predefined. Most journeys are going to have a mode of transport. You're not going to ask people to walk on foot. You're going to take them. You're going to have a vehicle, and that vehicle might be a webinar, it might be an event, it could be something that facilitates that journey. So I thought it'd be good to have Aveline Clarke on the show today. So Aveline runs a company called Journey Point. I know I've through the Infusionsoft partner community originally. I've described in her email footer. She has a signature as being customer journey architect. So I thought, who better to have on the show to chew the fat and explore this in detail. So welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
I ask everyone who comes on the show to talk through a slice of your story that describes who you are and what your business does today.
Wow. Well, I've been working in my own business for roughly coming up to 15 years. And prior to that, I was in the corporate world, like many people, and I worked in human resources, but I worked in an area where I guess, I don't know if it was synchronicity, luck, or just the merging of my skills and talents and what was available there. But I happened to work in a large organization for a man who was very innovative, and he gave me projects to run and in I guess human resources and for employees, and 30,000 employees. And so I did a number of things, and I was always looking to improve the experience, funnily enough. So it was, how can we improve? And my boss was sort of very open-minded, and he'd say, I think we have this problem. Do you want to see if you can solve that? So I'd go about these little projects, and whether it was technology-based, like an intranet, or there was, something like salary packaging for the managers and execs, and sort of improving their experience. I then created an onboarding process for this organization and went about managing the design of that. And when I'd finished, that was very successful, a lot of fun, and I loved it. I loved seeing how humans interacted at different stages of their journey. I loved being involved in the interaction at the beginning of their employment journey. and what we could present to them as, the welcome, and then what happened after that. I did kind of a small version of that at that organization, which was Australia Post. And then I moved on to one of the big banks in Australia. And after the first 18 months of doing sort of managing their global salary bonus process, I was offered the opportunity to also look at their onboarding. And that was a 2-year project. And I took it to another level than what I'd done in Australia Post. And effectively, once I achieved that, it was done. It was like, the CEO said, Aveline, you've changed the game at NAB. And I felt, well, man, that's not internally, privately. I said, well, okay, I've saved them how many hundreds of millions of dollars, or, and improve things. I don't think I just want to help one company make all this money. I'm going to leave. And naively then went out on my own, and there was a pathway. And of course, I met you a few years later when I'd fallen into marketing automation, because marketing automation was really the technology to help create the journey at a small scale. So even though I did it at a big scale in the corporate world, at NAB and Australia Post, I then was able to start doing things at a small level for small businesses using this technology.
That was
Over
how I got
time,
into Infusionsoft as well, actually.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Because I had a small Google Ads consulting practice, and I realized that a lot of my clients didn't really have a leads problem. They had a nurturing problem of staying in contact with the leads we were actually generating, and that led me into Infusionsoft. And I noticed that some of the smarter ones were using Infusionsoft as a more sophisticated piece of tech, and that was my route in.
Yeah, that's interesting how we find these things. And it was early on in the day, back when it looked very different and it was a different color. And so I was one of the early adopters and users of Infusionsoft. And yeah, my business evolved from there. Sort of went more down into the digital marketing space, which was a little bit less fulfilling because it was more transactional and not really focused on the human journey. It was focused on the transactional journey only between, when someone says, hey, I've got a problem, can you help? What have you got for me, up until the sale. And so that became less fulfilling when clients just said, build me a funnel, or, I want more leads. And it became less humanistic.
That's a really interesting point. So there's a difference between the human journey that you're taking people on and the transactional journey, which might be defined as a series of steps that people go through in the buying process, basically. Yeah.
And I think there was this explosion over time. There was an explosion in the technology world, of course. And there's certainly you can map this and see the key points, from the internet, and then the different companies that came online. And then you look at the time when 2006, when your Twitter and Facebook all came online, and then the explosion from there around all these different apps and other tools. There was mergers of companies beyond there, but there was a lot more players in the market for marketing automation. And then using technology in small business became just something that everybody did. And at the same time, you had people, your information marketers, your direct marketers, direct response copywriting people utilizing the internet to boost their brands and spread their word. And then you had a few gurus that sort of sat at the top of the industry, and then they would promote a tool and then create packages to sell with a tool. And
I can think of one or two gurus who might fit that bill.
Yeah. So I had customers who would be sold these things. It's like, I went to the conference and I've just spent $20,000 on all this stuff. And I'd be like, oh my God. And then, yes. So I experienced all of that, but it was still, because of that explosion, there's also an explosion in marketers and people that said they were experts overnight. And they were experts at technology. They were experts at being able to set something up in a marketing automation system and attach a piece of code to a website to get leads, to people to opt in. And early on, 15 years ago, that was like big stuff. It was like, oh, I put my email address in and I'll get a lead magnet. And that became the thing for a decade or so, you know, and everyone got used to opting in for things. And of course, with all things, there's a bell curve, and there's an explosion, and then it drops off, and people become more discerning and less trusting. And so you look at the state of marketing in general, as in the industry and the name, and it's got a
It's in a
reputation.
bad way.
It's not in a great way.
Yeah.
And I don't know many business owners who like marketers, really, in general. When you talk about marketing, there's not like a reverence. There's not a sense of, natural gratitude and warm and fuzzy. It's like, oh, marketers, dime a dozen, cookie cutter, don't really care. They've got these standardized processes. And that's as a result of what we've been through. You look at the last 15 years, and that's because of what's happened. And they've got these factory shop marketers that just have all these tools and all these processes designed to just, you buy a package of these, slot them into your business, and all of a sudden your customer journey is done. And it's
Because
not
you've
a
approached
customer
the problem of distance. So going back to the problem of distance, you've approached that from a purely technical angle without thinking about the human implications of the people going through that process.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I became very frustrated with initially in my business over time, and then more and more disheartened by, because I found that the market expected, as in, customers would come and go, we just want more leads. We need a new website, we need leads, and we need some automation. How much? What will it cost?
It's like going to the pizzeria, isn't it? Can I have a large pepperoni, please, with extra fries?
Yeah.
And how much is that?
Yeah, that's it. And I just hated it.
It's like the process is wrong. It should be, it should be it should be more like going to the doctor, I think.
Yeah. And then I realized it wasn't until COVID hit, and I was going through a business school program at the time. So on paper, I had a whole new business mapped out, drawn out, really. And it was a flip of what I was doing. So when COVID hit, and then our customers just dropped away, and luckily my business partner had left just a month before we went into lockdown, or the January. I think we went into lockdown April. So he'd left, and then the clients just started leaving, of course. And I had the opportunity to then pick up the book of everything I'd been working on, and went, okay, well, it's time. And what I'd gotten out of this business school process was I needed to actually have a business that reflected my gifts and genius. You look at the Ikigai model, and it was like, it flips the digital marketing business model on its head, because I was then focusing on the human aspect of the journey. The technology is just a way to help deliver parts of that. So
I'm also trying to kind of inch away from the technology, but I kind of have feet in both camps, because sometimes I'm the best placed person to implement the tech, but often, when you go to meetings and you bump into the real tech people, and I'm like, oh, that's, you guys should be doing this, not me. Although sometimes it's helpful to have someone that has like a holistic understanding, I think.
I totally agree. Yes. Yeah.
So you've been moving away from the tech, or inching away from the tech in your business.
A little bit. Certainly away from promoting the tech. So
yes.
When I flipped the business and developed Journey Point, it was more about the journey the customer goes on with you. So the focus is not on what tool. So if you think about a shop front, I was no longer selling a tool in my shop front. I was selling the relationship, and being able to build a relationship and get the right customer. And hey, I can help you create that, know what to say, how to say it, when to say it, what to do, what to give them, how, the dance. Let's just create the dance first, and then the technology comes way up, like at the end.
Yeah,
once
and
the
this is a
dance
theme
is.
that keeps cropping up in conversations, is that you work out the dance first, and then you hire the tech to help you repeat that over and over in the same way that's repeatable and scalable.
Yes, exactly. And what I'm finding, getting back to this whole, being less reliant on tech, is when I'm creating the dance with my customers, quite often it's really obvious where they sort of say, oh, I'll need the tech to remind me about that, but it's still a human step. So the tech will simply remind them, at this point, you need to just check in with this customer or check in with that person to make sure that they're happy, or you need to give them something. So, but it's not automated. So in other words, the system's not just sending an email, the system's sending a notification to the client, them, to say you need to give them to do something human. And that's the difference, that a complete shift to what we were, building and doing for, say, a decade. And we're purely looking at the amazing, power of tech. Because I think the pendulum went, from one end, went too far, and then we've come back. Yes, tech can do everything automated, but we're human beings. We need to connect, and people buy from people. I think that people forgot that along the way. I think if we go back 20 years, how did people market themselves? How did people sell? Mostly it was from meetings, and it could have been the golf course. It could have been an introduction from someone else. You may have had an ad in a paper, but still you pick up the phone or someone would ring you. Yeah, and there's human interaction. And those, and my dad had a business when I was young, and he just built relationships. And that's how his business succeeded. It was all about relationships. And even if he didn't make a sale originally, a few months later, someone would ring him up and say, oh, actually, now we need a travel insurance policy. We need a life insurance policy. And then he'd go and see them. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually, we also need this and this and this. And so that's what he did. And he continually visited his clients. You think about that today. I mean, he was an insurance agent and broker, and that's what he did. He'd visit his clients.
Yeah, and that is now an industry that has a pretty terrible rep for customer service.
Yeah.
If you think about the worst industries, think about insurance, property. Yeah. It's funny, as you were talking, I was kind of reflecting that these reasons are also why I haven't run 1,000,000 miles an hour into ChatGPT, and as a sort of tech, because again, it's a tech thing, and yes, it's going to be a big change, and yes, it can help in a lot of ways, but you can't replace the human part. You can't replace the core part of your difference, your story, your uniqueness. Like that still comes from you, and potentially it frees up some of your time in many other ways. But that kind of struck me as you were talking, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's like this pendulum, I think, of like shiny objects, and it swings out too far, and then everyone goes, oh, that mini chat thing, or whatever it is, that's the flavor of the moment. It's like, yeah, that's a shiny object, and then it kind of swings back, and then something else comes out.
I've seen so many shiny objects over the last 15 years. And I've seen so many people and business owners go, oh, look, there's another thing over here. Let's get that. And let's get that. And they're members of AppSumo, which is fine. I get AppSumo emails, but mostly I don't look at them. Once I have the things in my business that I need, and I've got that then covered, then I don't go searching out for another shiny object.
No.
I focus on doing what needs to be done, the important things. A shiny object is not going to make you money, unfortunately. And I think people I think this is a systemic, societal, endemic, sort of almost something that's in our brains. Those that are sort of addicted to social media, or those that have been swept up in the social media thing. And it's not just social media, it's the world, it's life. Let's take a pill and it will be fixed. I'll just and the promises. You look at the promises that some of these marketers make, you know,
I think we're all prone to magical thinking.
Exactly.
It takes a few failure cycles to kind of
Yeah.
get through that, and you have to go through the failure cycles. So
Mm.
I can tell if I get a new client and they still believe in magical thinking, like you can tell by the questions that they ask that they need to go and hurt their shins a few times by falling over first.
Yeah.
Before they're ready, and that just kind of is how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, agree. That's it. And unfortunately, the shiny object syndrome is one that affects many people, and they think that it'll save them or give them something, and they keep searching for it.
This idea of the dance that you kind of orchestrate, I imagine that like this is the sort of thing that like a lot of business owners kind of know they should be doing anyway, but it isn't systematized. It doesn't get done, or maybe they're feeling just overwhelmed by all of the other things that they're trying to do or supposed to be doing, and they're not doing the things that are probably more important.
Yeah.
Is this a case of like firstly thinking about being more deliberate about it, but then also prioritizing it?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll add to what you just said, because not only are they sort of not thinking too much about it, most business owners that I meet, talk to, and I talk to a lot of them, they just focus on their product. And it's how marketers work, it's how sales works. And I think about the last 10 years in this, you know, the digital age and this very noisy social media world. It's all about the shiny object and the marketing slang that's used to sell. So what does that mean? What has that done for business owners? Business owners have become used to comparing themselves to everyone else and finding ways to have better features and benefits, and promote louder, or, you know, oh, again, shiny object. How do I get my product in front of people? And this is part of the problem. And it's almost an unlearning that I have to go through with people when I work with them, because, and it's only when they've got to this point of frustration, like they've invested so much money in marketing tactics that don't work. And then they talk to me and I explain and present to them a different way. It's the dance. And then on a human level, they understand it. And so, but then I've got to help them to unlearn these habits of, you know, going into a networking event and just going, well, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you commoditize yourself immediately. You're just like
Totally.
the 7 other accountants that are there.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
Even though quite clearly you're not the same, but that's how you present.
That's right. And most people then go, well, yeah, okay, I get that I'm not the same as them as other people, but my product's the same. So how do I then present myself differently? Oh, I just need fancier words, or maybe I have different colors on my packaging, or right, another shiny object tool off AppSumo, or maybe I'll just do more videos and try and do the whole social media thing where I try and just become and saturate the market with content and flashy videos. Do you know what I mean? Like it takes a mindset shift to step back from that. But that's what the last 15 years have done. I'd say since around 2006. Where are we now? 2023. 17 years. So, and I say 2006 because that's when Twitter and Facebook were born. And at that point, that's where we saw a massive explosion in companies and the onset of so much automation in the marketplace. And that's where people became swept up with all of this technology. And it took them away from the dance. It took them away from human connection. And so when I work with them, it's let's focus on this first. And in fact, I get them to focus on themselves. And and that's the first thing I think that's quite different, is that I go deep into who they are. And so yes, I do work with small businesses, and I enjoy that. I really do, because I work with the business owner, because they're the ones that can create the change. It's more difficult working with the larger businesses with what I do, but Still I can do it. I've done it before at the top end, with NAB and Australia Post, but it's the dance, and that's the most important thing.
So you're getting them to look inwards first rather than kind of look outwards with kind of a product or solution focus?
Yeah, absolutely. I get them to look into themselves, and we figure out, we kind of do some work to understand what actually gives them meaning, and why are they even there. And sometimes those questions can be uncomfortable for people. They just go, oh, I just want to make money. I don't need to answer those questions. No, I just want to focus on selling my pen, selling my products, and well, if that's the driver, if money and being the loudest person on the block is the driver, then I'm not the right person to help them. They do have to have a level of, I guess, frustration or awareness to realize that what they're doing isn't working before they find me, and then they go, okay, I'm ready to look at this a different way.
The number of times I go to networking events and people ask me what, well, it's a trap, isn't it? Because people ask you, what do you do? So there's a trap in the question. And the number of times I kind of panic and go, I'm a copywriter. And then I kick myself afterwards, because it's like, yes, that's true, but it's also kind of not really true. There's some truth in it. And I think it takes practice. It takes deliberate practice to kind of reframe that. And it takes a bit of thought, and I think it probably takes a bit of help, because you end up being so close to it. Like, I can see for someone else talking about their work, it's like they need to phrase it differently. And then I go to talk about my own work, and it all goes out the window all of a sudden. So perhaps people do need help with it as well. I think there's this factor of distance from your own work that means you don't, that means you lack perspective on it.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a process I take my clients through, which is creating a pitch. And it's a little bit different. And I know we hear value proposition and all that kind of thing. Yes, people want to know, what's the value proposition? What am I going to get? What's the value I'm going to get in order to invest in you? But I do it a little bit differently, in that I teach and help them craft a message that starts with, first of all, you've got to understand who you're selling to. And that's really, really, really key. Because if you don't understand who it is that you're selling to, you're always going to have problems. There's a big gap, there's a distance. And that's where people are just focused on their wonderful product. And understanding that and focusing on the person they're selling to first, what it is that they truly want. And it's not about the problem. Okay, we sort of look at this sometimes. People go, what is the problem we're solving? And well, I go a little bit deeper, and then we bring into that purpose. So we've got to always lead, and this is me, because if people know what you stand for and why you're doing what you're doing, they're going to align with you on a human level. Think about
this is the other thing I do at networking events, where sometimes I go to the other extreme and people ask me what I do, and like 4,000 words later, this person is trying to like get away from me, because again, I've tried to do it the other way, but I haven't got it right, because I haven't planned it well enough.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I've seen that so many times, and people start talking, and they keep talking, and they keep talking, and then they're trying to go around in circles and fill the gap over here, fill this gap, and then hope that they've said the right thing. Yeah.
So talk some more about the process. So you're helping people to kind of understand themselves and understand their purpose, and go deeper down, not just into the solution that they provide, and not even just to the problem that they solve, but deeper into the purpose of why that matters, and why that matters for a specific audience, for a specific group of people.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a reason why they're selling the product in the first place. Now, if someone is not purposeful, or they're only doing it for the sake of money, then maybe they're not my client. I'd like to think that people, your audience and people listening to this, are a bit different. And most people are, human. We do want to connect, and we do want to make a difference at some level. So I tap into that, who they are and what drives them, and why they're doing what they're doing, and then figuring out on the other side who their customer is. And we go very deep into that. And we do work that most people have never done before. And we get into more of so my client's psychology, and then we go into their clients, their customers' psychology a little bit. And then the point is to create the dance for them. So it's like, well, in order for you to dance, you've got to have the right music, and you need to know the steps, and you need to invite them in for the dance. And if you don't have the right steps, and if you're just doing what all your competitors are doing, if you're not saying the right things, they're not going to hear you. So it's almost like if they don't speak the right language, and if they haven't created the right environment, then their customer doesn't hear them, doesn't see them, and keeps walking by. So I help them do that. So we go through the process, we design the words, the messaging, where that needs to go, and how it can be used, and then we design the assets and tools that they need. So these are the things they need to give their prospects and the customers along the way to be able to give them what they need. So everyone's goes through a period of education typically. And I work with a lot of service-based businesses. I've had a couple of product-based businesses, but mainly they're services. And with that, most customers educate themselves. They want to know certain things. So you've got to be able to have those things ready, and you've got to have the right message in those things. And there's got to be this consistency. And I go through and we map out the whole journey, but there's a lot of content. There's at the end, then they've got to figure out how to build it, and we work out a priority order. What do they need to build? What do they need to create? What's missing from the pyramid or the ladder of products? There's a lot of service-based businesses. If they're a solopreneur, they might just have one product and that's their main service. Yep. Or they might have a lead magnet they created a few years ago and that's all they've got. And so I teach them about the different types of products and how they are used to do different things, and the importance of having the right ones in the right place, so that they can leverage themselves a bit more. Because most people that come to me have capacity for more clients. But I don't have people coming to me who are really, really, really busy and are turning customers away.
There's a few things that you said there that I'd like to drill down on. I think this kind of customer journey thinking and planning, I think it does apply better to service-based businesses. I think if it's a product, unless you're then taking people on a journey of how to use that product or incorporate it somehow, which is potentially doable, I guess. But I think the use case for it, for kind of the customer journey planning, goes down. Another observation that I've had is, as I kind of built out more of a body of work in terms of running a podcast, publishing a book, publishing blog posts, what I found is that people I have this kind of orbit around me of my body of work, and I found that people kind of move in and out at different points, kind of when they're ready, not really when I want them to. But that to me feels a bit like the dance, because they're moving in and out, and sometimes someone. So in the past, I've mapped out where, in theory, someone will come in, they'll buy the book, they'll register for the book bonuses, they'll listen to a few podcast episodes, they'll join a webinar, they'll become a client. I have one client literally ever that's followed that path. It just isn't really how they interact with my body of work. And I wondered if that was kind of your experience as well.
Yeah, and yes, because first of all, even though we identify who their ideal client is, you and I know from the years of working in this space that there's been research done on the percentage of people at any one time who are ready to buy versus those that are educating and they're almost ready to buy, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got them at different stages and phases. The other thing is, some people just might be more visual. Some people might be more auditory. So if you've got your podcast, they might listen to a couple of those and then go, that's wonderful. They might see not want to spend so much time reading, or maybe they're less inclined to do the webinar, or they are more inclined to read. And so they'll pick and choose things that suit them, their method of learning and experience. I have a client at the moment, and we were chatting the other day, and I got them to look back on their customers and do a bit of sort of introspection. And they made the comment that they realized that I think, a good number of their quality clients are all clients who at some point, sort of 2-3 years prior, had attended an in-person free kind of session. And it took them 18 months to 2 years. One was 3 years to come back and go, we're ready to buy from you. So you've got to be, again, it depends on the kind of business, so what the service is or the product you're selling, who your customer is, but people have different needs, and life happens. And this is the thing, humans are not robots. They don't work in this perfect line. We have
like
ebbs and flows. It's not linear. So being able to create a dance or that journey that honors the human experience is so important.
Sometimes someone will come through and they'll be like, oh yeah, I listened to 23 podcast episodes back to back while I was out on a massive cycle ride. And I'm like, did you? I didn't know anyone was actually listening, but you never actually know how people are interacting with it. Like the dance might be happening without your knowledge.
That's right. And
but maybe you need
part
systems
of what
in
we
place
do
to kind of facilitate a more human interaction so that it's not just completely digital.
That's right. I mean, they might access you digitally because, I mean, I have clients around the world, yet they need human interaction. So at least with your podcast, they get to hear Rob. They're not just reading words on a page that anyone could have written, even though you're the copywriter. But, they're listening to you. They're feeling into your words. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's going on internally in their minds and as they're listening to you.
No one could copy me if they tried. I'm absolutely, that's one of the few things I'm convinced about.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah.
But that's what it comes back to in terms of like not commoditizing yourself. And I've been trying to collaborate more with other copywriters recently, because it's like there isn't anyone like me. There is no one doing exactly what I'm doing, and there's a downside in that, but there's also an element of beauty in that as well. And it kind of leans more into a kind of collaborative way of operating.
And I think that's a really mature way to run your business, when you've realized what your genius is and your niche. You get that sense of, oh, this is what I do and I'm really good at it, and you realize that no one else can be you and do you, then you've got the confidence to go and make those collaborations. And I think until you've actually got that internal knowing and comfort and confidence in yourself, I don't think the collaborations are as easy.
No, I feel like what you're doing with this customer journey work is that you're facilitating this kind of internal knowing and pointing out to your clients what that actually is, and then thinking about, well, how do you make that happen on a more regular basis in a way that impacts more, in a way that impacts more people, in a way that means that your business is a joy to operate, not something that runs your life.
Totally. Yeah, I get a couple of the things I do is getting, when I said the inner work, looking at themselves, the response I've had from them when they get that clarity. So what I give them is a lot of clarity about themselves that they never had before. And some of the responses are, they'll shout with joy, they'll swear really loudly, some will cry, because they get this complete knowing, and then everything changes from there. And then they go, oh my gosh, I realize now I've been going about my business the whole wrong way, or I've been saying the wrong things. I've been going out. I can see that everything is just cheesy and it's not me. And once people have that clarity of who they are and why they're doing what they're doing, then they realize that they've got to completely change their messaging. They've got to change their communication. So I facilitate understanding. I facilitate the understanding of themselves and the understanding of their customer. And the reverse, I facilitate the understanding for their customer of what they do. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
I've just drawn a really, I don't know if you can see this. This is really rudimentary. It's two triangles.
Yes, I can see that. I can't read the writing though.
So I don't think anyone can read my writing other than me. That's why I'm a copywriter. So understanding is at the top here. So this is how it should be, I think, with understanding at the top, tools or tech at the bottom, and then maybe kind of more tactical considerations in the middle. Whereas actually marketing is more inverse, where you've got this big section of tools at the bottom, understanding at the top, understanding yourself at the top, and that actually comes last. And maybe the whole triangle needs inverting.
I like the way your brain works. Yeah, totally agree. And I saw it when I realized what journey point needed to be, and I started to put it into place. I was very clear that previously my business was solving the tech. Obviously, it was just tech focused, and not even, I wanted to do the journeys, but it was very hard to sell when someone comes and they want tech, and then you're trying to sell them a journey. And then
they've come in and asked, how much do you charge for Infusionsoft? And it's a very difficult question to then completely rephrase what they've asked. So
yeah, they're not interested in building a relationship or figuring out the understanding of themselves and all of that. They just want the tech.
So you had to create your own customer journey first, really, to take them from that point where they're asking questions about tech to the point where they realize, oh, I need to go and work on myself first and replicate that interaction with a customer.
And then when I explain what needs to be done, and then I go, and the tech comes down there right at the end, and then they go, oh,
I think that's a relief to a lot of business owners, though, because I think the tech is quite intimidating.
Yes, but see, here's the thing: the societal, I guess the norm, the habit, what's in the marketplace, what their competitors are doing. Everyone goes out and gets tech, so they just think, oh, well, let's just go get tech. That's what I need.
Yeah, on last week's episode, I was interviewing Gareth Everson, and I was complaining that a lot of the email marketing questions that I get are, which email marketing software should I use, or is Keep better than ActiveCampaign? And I just can't do it anymore. I just can't answer it, because they're too far away. It's like they're too far away to take on the journey. It's like you need to go and kick yourselves in the shins a few times before you can come back and talk to me. So that's my audience. I'm trying to find people who've they've asked those questions. They've wasted a pitload of money on the wrong system. They kicked themselves a few times. They've got a great story. They do provide high value to their clients. But they've been through a failure. There's definitely a failure cycle that they've been through as well. In regards to the customer journey and the tech that surrounds that, be that a marketing automation system or whatever.
And for any of new people listening to this who go, but I want you to answer that question, Rob. I'll summarize, right, and just say, like what Rob just said, that they've probably, they do need to go kick themselves in the shins, because it's not about the tech. And at the end of the day, like we were just saying, you need to figure out the dance. You need to figure out the journey first. And then, you know what? Choose the one that you like the most.
Choose the one that is easiest to use. And choose the one that you're actually going to use, and not just buy and let it sit in the garage.
And don't squabble over $10 a month difference or $30 a month difference, for goodness sake. Choose the tool that, like Rob just said, you're going to use, you're going to enjoy it. It's easy to use. The tool's not going to make you the money.
No.
That's not about the tool.
No, you are going to make you the money by doing that thinking.
Yeah.
I almost feel like before you run off and set up the systems surrounding this, there's a degree of sharpening the axe that has to happen before you attempt to start swinging the axe. whether that's in terms of understanding yourself and understanding the audience and thinking about the dance. Like that to me is it's a degree of thinking that maybe doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but it's
No.
coming into by doing that thinking, you're making sure that the axe is really sharp so that when you do swing it, it's going to achieve the impact that you want it to.
Absolutely. I mean, and thinking about the axe. So I went and bought an axe for my partner recently from the hardware store. And you know, you buy an axe and you assume that it's going to do the job. So this is a good analogy. And then you come home and you start swinging it, and then you go, crap, it needs sharpening. And it's only once you sharpen it and get it to the right, you know, blade width and all the rest, and then adjust the handle and then do it in the right way. Oh, now it works. Now it's doing what I want. So yeah, it's sharpening the axe. It's a whole lot of stuff. You could use a number of different analogies. I think.
Don't keep swinging it until the skin's peeling off your hands because your hands are blistered, and like just give yourself take a step back.
I think exactly, and I love what I do, and I know the importance of what I do. I also know that not everyone's ready for it. One of the things I've found over time is that if someone has a brand new business and they haven't validated their product offering yet, I can only help them so far, but they've got to validate themselves first.
Yeah, it's leverage. Like it's a factor in multiplication, and you can't multiply nothing. And you can't fix foundational problems with the business. There's a level of problems in the foundations that you can't fix.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's not to say that if someone is setting out on a new business venture that they shouldn't do this work. I think they should, absolutely, but except that it might take them, you know, the next 12 months might be exploratory, and a few things will need to be tweaked and changed, right? When they really learn who their customer is. Because if you don't have an understanding of the customer, you've only got one side of the dance. So it's, and I think just starting with if you're starting out in business and you've done the inner work and you've got all of that side, you know, you've got the internal clarity and all of that, and you've done all that right, you're doing far better than someone who hasn't started out that way. But
I've considered changing my projects to being kind of 12-month projects on the same reason that over 12 months you're actually going to build a body of work that, assuming, you know, I need people to have leads coming in, but then if you're then sending out a weekly email, a daily email, converting that to books, you know, creating a podcast, building this body of work, that's going to then assist and sort people. But over a year, you'll see real impacts with that. Over a month, probably not so much. So it comes back to the issue. People want fast solutions. People want to, you know, press the button on whatever marketing tech site, or press the sign up button and, you know, set up a bunch of campaigns and expect it to work, and it doesn't.
That's right. And look, the program I take my customers through is roughly 2 to 3 months long. And even that is a lot of change for these people. Like there's a lot that we do, and it completely changes so much for them. You know, it flips their mind, their perspective. They realize they've got to go and change a whole lot of things as a result. And it's not just because I've told them they have to do it. It's because that's what they know they've got to do. So this all takes time. And as humans, we also internally, we struggle with too much change at once. Some people are better at it than others, right? And so we've all got our own change limit. And so it takes time. And then there's the process to actually go and create the tools, make the changes on the websites, change this, build this, create this. And it could be another 12 months, depending on their resources to actually do all this.
Yeah, it's not magic. It's not a magic fix, but it's a deep and foundational fix that's going to change the trajectory of what you're doing.
Yeah, magic. That's right. I mean, occasionally, like I had one client in the UK, we nailed her purpose and her reason for being, and luckily she already had good traffic to her website. I completely I got her to change the headline on her website, and the tagline and the image to be for her ideal customer. And within 3 weeks, like, she was watching all the data and the conversions off that website, and it absolutely changed the game for her. And she was in it. But again, that was a one-off, as in, that's not normal. Most people don't have thousands of visitors to their website unless, you know, she did. And so therefore she could track and see, you know, systemic fundamental change straight away. Of course, that was just the first step. There still had to be everything else built out behind it, right? As in the journey. But that was just one little point of the journey. Most people just focus on their website and getting leads. But you've got to remember, folks, that's just one point of the journey. Just because you get a whole lot of people opting in or, you know, clicking something, does that mean they're going to become a customer? Well, no, not if you haven't figured out the rest. So anyway, so occasionally I do get those kind of changes and results in for the customers, yeah. But fundamental change and the sustainable growth happens over time.
I was thinking, so I have a reputation for changing the domain name of my business and going through various. So there's actually a ban now. There's no more domain name changes. I'm drawing a line under that, but I almost called it slow cooker sales. And then with the tagline of marinate your ideal customer until they're ready to buy. And every now and again, I have a flashback to it. Like, no, keep that in the box. We're not changing any more more branding.
You could create just like a book.
Yeah, I could definitely write that book.
I think that would be cool. You know, that could be like a 10-pager or a 20-pager or something, and that could be a really nice kind of giveaway to your list.
Yeah,
I love it.
How do people learn more about your process then, and where can people find you online?
Right, so the website is journeypoint.com.au, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. There's only one Aveline Clarke.
Is there?
Yes.
Amazing.
I know, I'm so lucky. So yeah, you can find me there and reach out, connect. That would be great. Happy to always have a conversation no matter where you are. So
cool. And let's just mention the work you're doing with the 6-star business community as well. So I kind of think this, I can see a correlation between this. Do you want to sort of mention that briefly as well for anyone listening?
Yeah. So this is another thing, obviously, that we've collaborated on. I run a community and I have a podcast called 6-Star Business, and that's come about over the last couple of years, and it's a lot of fun. We have a great bunch of people who are more purpose-driven. They are more human. So, you know, we're talking about creating these human connections in our customer journey. Well, one aspect of how we grow our businesses and become more human is to surround ourselves with more, like-minded people, and those that have our back, those that care about us. So, I don't know, it wasn't by default, but it just organically evolved. And we've created this beautiful space, and there's some amazing people there.
I think you're trying to solve like a higher level problem. It's like, I think the work you're doing with Journey Point is more your specific thing that you do perhaps as your trade, but obviously that ties into a bigger thing that involves more people, it involves more expertise.
Yeah.
And that has to happen in community.
It does. It's a bigger, wider, like you said, further scope. Yeah.
But it's the same issue because it comes back to humanity. It comes back to value. I think there's this kind of aspirational aspect to it as well of like, again, it's like, if you're trying to implement the dance in your business, that's quite in one respect, that's almost like an aspirational thing to do, because it's like you're trying to do something very different to what your competitors are probably doing.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
It is like creating a 6-star experience in your business, and that's it's one aspect of it.
That's right. It's one aspect. And it's like, if a business got to that point, then they realize, you know, the joy of that, then they hopefully would be then ready to then connect with other people that also are on the same wavelengths, that also want to have more of these connections and
that are committed to doing that, even if that isn't the current state of the business. That is their mindset. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Cool. I shall link to. So, is there a website we can give for 6-Star Business?
We have a LinkedIn page. So if they search for 6-Star Business on LinkedIn, all the information is in there. And there's also a YouTube with all the podcast episodes and the podcast as well. So, cool. Which is called 6-Star Business.
Cool. Number 6. I will
Mm.
make sure those links are in the show notes as well for anyone listening.
Right. Beautiful.
It's been a great chat. Thanks for coming on, Av.
Thank you, Robert. I've absolutely loved it. It's been
super. Thanks. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Story Copywriter podcast, you'll want to make sure you're on my email list. When you sign up at storycopywriters.com/podcast, I'll also send you my 7-day storytelling crash course free by email. Please also make sure you've got a copy of my Simple Story Selling book, which is available from Amazon in paperback and Kindle formats. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.